We often whisper to ourselves, just one more time, one more scroll, one more delay, one more bite. It feels harmless, a small choice that doesn't matter. Yet this quiet voice shapes our lives more than we realize. What begins as comfort becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a prison. The teachings of mindfulness invite us to see through this illusion, to wake up from the gentle lies we tell ourselves. This is not about guilt, but about freedom, about remembering who we are beneath our habits. The phrase, just one more time, sounds innocent. It gives comfort, a soft permission to rest a little longer or indulge once again. But behind that comfort lies a quiet trap. Every small repetition begins to form a thread, and before we notice, those threads weave themselves into chains. Habits don't announce their arrival. They settle in quietly. One decision becomes another, until the pattern becomes automatic. We wake up one day realizing we no longer choose. Our habits do. In the teachings of awareness, every action plants a seed. Each thought, each moment of giving in strengthens that seed. When we say just this once, we water it. Over time, it grows roots deep in our mind. It becomes the unseen force guiding our behavior. The more we act on impulse, the more we lose sight of our inner power. The illusion is that we're in control, but in truth, we've handed control away piece by piece to the habits we built. Freedom begins with noticing. When you pause before that extra click, that extra bite, that extra distraction, you reclaim a moment of awareness. It's in that moment that the chain weakens. You don't have to fight your habits with anger or guilt. Simply see them. Observe how just one more whispers to you when you're tired, bored, or lonely. Once you see it clearly, the spell breaks. You begin to choose again. The simple act of noticing is the first step toward freedom. Habits are strong, but awareness is stronger. The silent chains begin to loosen the moment you stop believing that just one more time is harmless. We often believe we can stop anytime we want. That's the comfort we hide behind. I can quit when I decide to. Yet, every repetition strengthens the illusion that we are still in control. Each time we give in, we tell ourselves it doesn't matter, that we still have power over the choice. But the truth is softer and more uncomfortable. The more we repeat, the less control we have. The mind starts to act on its own, following old patterns like a river following a carved path. When awareness fades, even our confidence becomes a form of blindness. The wise understand that true control is not about holding on, but about seeing clearly. When we see the cycle as it is, not good, not bad, just real, the illusion begins to dissolve. The moment you realize you're being carried away by a habit, you are no longer fully trapped in it. That realization is a light cutting through the fog of repetition. Control is not force. It is not resistance. It is understanding. When you observe your craving without judging it, when you notice the impulse to reach for just one more and simply breathe, you begin to understand your own mind. The cycle loses its grip. You start to see that the mind is not your enemy. It's a teacher. Every desire shows you where you've placed your sense of comfort, and every moment of awareness helps you reclaim it. True mastery comes not from dominating yourself, but from understanding yourself deeply. When you know the shape of your own illusion, you can step beyond it. The illusion of control fades the moment you see that awareness, not repetition, is your real strength. Every great change in life begins with something small. Every downfall, too. A small indulgence feels harmless, a moment of comfort, a little reward after a long day. But that small act plants a seed. In time, that seed becomes a forest of patterns that shape how we live, think, and feel. The world is not built on grand events. It's built on the quiet moments we repeat. The mind learns through these moments, and it never forgets what we teach it. When we allow a small indulgence once, it feels like nothing. But once becomes twice, and twice becomes routine. Slowly, the mind begins to crave that comfort again and again. It becomes a source of safety and discomfort, and soon the seed has grown roots. What was once a choice now feels like a need. The real challenge is not the act itself, but the story we tell ourselves, that we can manage it, that it doesn't matter. But wisdom teaches us that even a drop can fill a bucket, and small choices gather strength over time. The same is true for kindness, for patience, for awareness. If small indulgences can become powerful patterns, so can small acts of discipline. When we choose to breathe before reacting, when we choose stillness instead of escape, we plant different seeds, ones that grow into peace, clarity, and compassion. Each day is a garden of choices. You can't erase what has been planted before, but you can choose what grows next. When you notice the small indulgences and replace them with small awakenings, life begins to shift. It doesn't happen all at once, but every conscious moment is a seed of freedom. The smallest choice can change the entire direction of your life. The mind is not a stone, it is water. It changes shape with every drop of experience. What we repeat, we become. Every thought, every emotion, every reaction forms a pattern. The beauty of this truth is that it works both ways. The same power that strengthens our habits can also free us from them. Just as the mind learns to crave, it can learn to release. It can unlearn what no longer serves us and build peace where chaos once lived. Each time you say no to the illusion of just one more, you carve a new path in your mind. At first it feels strange, even difficult, but with patience the new path becomes familiar. The old one fades. This is how change truly happens, not in one great leap, but in small conscious moments that reshape the way we think and feel. In the silence of awareness, the brain begins to heal. It begins to remember its natural state of balance. Every time you pause before acting out of impulse, you give your mind a chance to rewire itself. You teach it stillness. You teach it that peace does not depend on the next indulgence, but on the space between urges. Transformation doesn't come from fighting against your patterns. It comes from understanding them, sitting with them, and slowly guiding them toward clarity. The mind can be a servant or a master, depending on what we feed it. When we nurture mindfulness instead of impulse, compassion instead of craving, we begin to feel lighter. The old roads crumble, and the new ones lead to freedom. The power to change has always been within us. It begins the moment we stop believing we are trapped by our own thoughts. Discipline rarely disappears in a single failure. It fades slowly, quietly, through the small permissions we give ourselves. I've worked hard today. I deserve this. It's only once. These words sound kind, even comforting, but they are often the first cracks in the wall of self-mastery. The moment we start bargaining with our integrity, the illusion begins to take root. Discipline dies not from great defeats, but from gentle self-deception. True discipline is not about punishment. It's about respect. Respect for your time, your energy, your purpose. Every time you say just one more time, you trade a piece of your strength for momentary ease. The comfort feels immediate, but the cost accumulates in silence. Over time, you lose the sharpness of focus, the confidence that comes from keeping promises to yourself. But awareness revives discipline. When you begin to notice the excuses as they arise, you catch the illusion before it grows. You start to see that the voice saying just this once isn't you. It's a shadow of habit, a trick of the mind trying to avoid discomfort. You don't need to silence that voice. You only need to see it clearly. Once seen, it loses its authority. The essence of true practice is gentleness with firmness. You don't need to be harsh to stay committed. You simply need to remember why you started. Each moment of awareness strengthens your resolve. Every time you choose alignment over avoidance, you rebuild your inner foundation. Discipline is not a prison. It is the freedom of consistency. It allows you to live with clarity, to walk your path without guilt or regret. It dies in neglect but thrives in awareness. The same small permissions that weaken it can also rebuild it, one mindful choice at a time. The illusion of just one more time feels safe because it is familiar. The mind clings to what it knows, even when it causes pain. Familiar discomfort feels less frightening than unfamiliar growth. We choose what we recognize, even when it limits us. The mind confuses comfort with peace, but they are not the same. Comfort often hides fear, while peace is born of courage, the courage to face truth without turning away. We repeat patterns not because they make us happy, but because they make us feel secure. The repetition gives structure, predictability. It's easier to stay where we are than to step into uncertainty. But growth requires stepping into the unknown. The teachings remind us that all things are impermanent. What feels safe today may become the very thing that keeps us from living fully tomorrow. When you notice yourself reaching for the familiar habit, pause. Ask gently, what am I avoiding? Often it's not the habit itself we crave, but the feeling of safety it provides. The comfort of the known becomes a soft cage. Seeing this is the beginning of awakening. Once you recognize that your mind mistakes familiarity for peace, you gain the courage to choose differently. Letting go of what is familiar can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, but freedom lies beyond that edge. You don't need to jump, you just need to take one small, mindful step. Every time you do, you remind your mind that safety doesn't come from repetition, but from awareness. True peace comes from presence, from meeting life as it is, without hiding behind old comforts. The illusion feels harmless because it's familiar, but when you look closely, you see it for what it is, a story that can be rewritten anytime you choose. When we say, just once more, we believe we're taking action. But often we're avoiding something deeper, avoiding a feeling, a truth, a discomfort waiting to be seen. The illusion of one more time distracts us from stillness, from reflection. It gives us something to do, a way to fill the silence. The mind loves movement because stillness reveals truth, and truth is sometimes uncomfortable. Avoidance hides beneath many masks: busyness, indulgence, entertainment, even kindness to others. We convince ourselves we're being productive or balanced, but sometimes we're just running away from ourselves. The pattern continues until one day we realize we've built a life around escape. But you cannot outrun your own reflection. Wherever you go, the untouched truth waits patiently within. Awareness breaks this pattern. When you catch yourself saying, but just one more, pause and ask, what am I not wanting to feel right now? Maybe it's loneliness, maybe fear, maybe regret. Whatever it is, it deserves to be seen. The moment you face it, it begins to lose power. What was once unbearable becomes bearable in the light of acceptance. Stillness is not emptiness. It is space for understanding. When you stop escaping, you begin to heal. You discover that most of what you feared were shadows of thought, not monsters of reality. You see that your peace does not depend on distractions, but on your willingness to be present with yourself. Avoidance ends when you learn to sit with what is, without judgment. Just one more no longer holds power when you understand what it was hiding. The illusion fades, and in its place appears truth, gentle, clear, and liberating. Momentum is powerful. It builds with every choice we make. It can lift us toward growth or drag us deeper into distraction. Every small act gathers force, creating a current that either supports or sabotages us. When we indulge in just one more, we feed the momentum of delay. When we choose awareness, we feed the momentum of awakening. Both paths grow with repetition. Momentum doesn't judge, it only follows direction. This is why mindfulness is essential, to choose where the energy flows. Each moment of awareness is like turning the steering wheel of your life. One small adjustment changes the entire course over time. The danger lies in forgetting that momentum builds silently. It's not the grand decisions that shape our destiny, but the ordinary ones repeated daily. When you wake up and choose stillness over scrolling, patience over irritation, or honesty over avoidance, you redirect your momentum. It doesn't feel dramatic, but it matters. Life changes quietly. The waves of old habits weaken as the waves of new awareness grow stronger. You begin to notice that your mind feels lighter, your choices clearer. The same force that fuels procrastination also fuels growth. The difference is awareness. If you drift without it, you get carried by habit. If you steer with it, you move with purpose. Momentum is not your enemy. It's your mirror. It reflects what you feed it. The more attention you give to mindful living, the more naturally it carries you forward. In every moment, you're building a direction. The choice between awareness and autopilot decides which way you move. When you remember that momentum is always at work, you no longer feel powerless. You realize that just one more can build either bondage or freedom, depending on where you guide your mind. Real change doesn't begin with perfection. It begins with honesty. The moment you admit that just one more time has become a trap. The moment you see the illusion clearly, you awaken. Awareness itself is the seed of transformation. Change doesn't happen because you force it. It happens because you stop lying to yourself. You begin to see your patterns not with shame but with curiosity. You begin to understand that the power to change has always been within you. Every time you notice yourself caught in the cycle and choose awareness, you shift your destiny. The first conscious pause may feel small, but it's enormous. It's a declaration of freedom. The moment you refuse to follow the old script, you write a new one. It's not about rejecting who you were, but embracing who you can become. You don't need to wait for the perfect day to start. You only need to start seeing clearly today. True transformation happens quietly, in small, consistent awakenings. The more you see through the illusion, the less power it has. It's like a dream that fades as you wake up. Once you understand that awareness itself is enough to begin change, you no longer feel trapped by your past actions. You stop punishing yourself and start learning from yourself. This is the beginning of real freedom. Growth is not about never falling. It's about rising with wisdom each time you do. When you fall into old habits, don't despair. Smile gently and return to awareness. That return is victory. The path of awakening isn't straight. It's a dance between forgetting and remembering. Each time you remember, the illusion weakens. Real change begins the moment you stop saying just one more time and start saying just this moment. Freedom is not the ability to say yes to every desire. It is the strength to say no with peace. Every time you say no to just one more, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you are not your cravings, not your impulses, not your habits. You are the awareness behind them, calm, steady, and free. Saying no is not rejection. It is remembrance. It's remembering that joy doesn't come from the next indulgence, but from clarity and self-respect. The world teaches us that freedom means doing whatever we want, but wisdom reveals that real freedom comes from not being ruled by wanting. When you say no from a place of understanding, it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like liberation. You realize that you don't need more to feel whole. You simply need to be present. Saying no is an act of love. Love for your mind, for your body, for your future. Each no becomes a doorway to deeper peace. At first, it feels uncomfortable because the habit resists change. But with patience, the discomfort fades, and what remains is serenity. You begin to feel the beauty of self-control, not as restriction, but as balance. It's not about denying life's pleasures, but about choosing them consciously, without being consumed by them. Every mindful no strengthens your inner stillness. It's a quiet rebellion against the noise of endless craving. It's a reminder that happiness is not found in excess, but in enough. Freedom isn't about having everything you desire. It's about realizing you already have what you need. The illusion of just one more time loses its power when you understand this truth. The moment you master the art of saying no with compassion, you awaken to the greatest joy, the peace that comes from living fully, freely, and consciously.